Hello and welcome to Cake Fight Presents The Making of Kaleidoscope. I'm Paige Feldman and I am taking you through the process of making my very first feature film as a writer-director from idea to premiere in real time. I am so glad to have you here. If you're new, welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. If you're a returning subscriber, extra special welcome back. I really appreciate you. And if you want to get an extra special welcome back, just go down that way and hit the subscribe button and you will be included in that extra special welcome back. All right, so last time I talked about the 36 questions to fall in love, which is an article in the New York Times from 2015. And as a pre-writing exercise, because I realized that as much as I know about the plot of Kaleidoscope, even in the little bits and pieces that I have, I'm not super sure about my characters. I can't quite answer the question, why do Lee and Jonah belong together? And for a romantic comedy, it's so important to have a sense of inevitability and belonging together and meant-to-be-ness for your main characters. So, as a writing exercise, I have decided to lock Lee and Jonah into a room in a kitchen and to have them answer these 36 questions to fall in love as a way of figuring out who they are, what their dynamic is together and individually, and to also maybe give myself some more insight onto what really matters about the story. As of today, I have answered 10 of the 36 questions, and so I am going to take you over to some video diaries in a minute for questions 3 through 10, but before that, we got to deal with questions 1 and 2. And I didn't have video diaries when I wrote them. I wrote those answers in June of 2021 when I was still kind of deciding whether I was even going to do this YouTube thing. It's new for me. It's scary. I'm very much a behind the camera person, though I'm beginning to like this version of in front of the camera. I'm not going to be acting anytime soon. No one wants to see me act. So anyway, I have, instead of video diaries, I have a physical diary. Let's see, so this is my moleskin. I got it engraved when I bought it. So it says Kaleidoscope 1 here, because I imagine there'll be many more diaries that I'll be writing. I'm not anticipating a sequel. Sequels to romantic comedies rarely work because who wants to break up a happy ever after? I mean, I'm not Nicholas Sparks, guys. Plus, I want to just get this one movie made. If someone wants to pay me to make a sequel, I mean, we'll talk after that. But first, let's concentrate on Kaleidoscope. And after I wrote the answers to question 1 and 2, I wrote my reactions in this journal. So you're getting real-time reactions about these questions, just read right now instead of in June. And for those of you keeping score at home, we're at the end of August, beginning of September 2021. So it's just been a few months, but it's not right now. It's not immediate. The other 3 through 10, it's immediate. I'll give you the dates at the top of those. So before I swing you over to those video diaries, let's talk about questions 1 and 2. So I've got question 1 drawn up on my computer over here, and let's read it. So, question 1, given the choice of anyone in the world, whom would you want as a dinner guest? Now, Jonah chooses Lenny Bruce, who is a Jewish iconoclast comedian, brilliant, controversial, everything that Jonah wants to be. And Jonah's also Jewish, and so that connection is important for him as well. Lee, on the other hand, chooses Marilyn Monroe. Not maybe for the most usual reasons, though. Lee's not interested in Marilyn as a sex symbol. She's interested in who Marilyn was before she became Marilyn Monroe. She's interested in Marilyn's relationship to Norma Jean Baker, to the woman she was before she became famous. Lee wants to dine with someone who understands the tension between the woman you show the world and the woman who you are. And that, I think, is really special and interesting about Lee, that she might make a choice that seems conventional or basic, but for completely unconventional reasons. But what's more interesting to me than all of that are the insights that I had after writing that vignette. So let's open the book. June 7th, 2021.
It's been forever since I used those character questionnaires to try to create characters for novels I had ideas for, but never ended up writing. I think I abandoned those as a viable/useful tool for pre-writing when I was a teenager, or maybe in my early 20s.
I'm 36 now, guys, just FYI.
But after talking to David Wapple on Friday and realizing that the reason I'm stuck on Kaleidoscope is that I don't have a sense of Lee and Jonah's relationship, I'm kind of back there again. I need to figure out their voices, why they belong in a relationship together, and how they held opposing yet complementary worldviews, especially as it relates to the theme. The questions are overwhelming, so I reluctantly went back to asking characters questions. I'm not sure why I'm reluctant. Doing character work is important, but it's something I intuit more than I do plot. Maybe it's just that I feel like I'm failing a little not to just know them. Except I had a breakthrough on Saturday, or later on Friday, that Lee is an attorney who hates her job. She's not aimless or ambitiousless, she feels stuck. And she wants to take nature photographs, like redacted from law school. And that fit. Her aloofness is part of that desire for prestige and rigor.
I went to law school. Rigor's a big word in law school.
So when I went to write a scene with Lee and Jonah, because I refused to do questionnaires, I heard her voice. And Jonah was there too. Sad and quick-witted and affable.
So that was question one. I heard Lee and Jonah's voices just out of the gate, which is really exciting and something that I just feel really lucky to have kind of found that so fast after starting these vignettes without really having much of a sense of them as a pair. And now let's move on to question two. And question two is, would you like to be famous? In what way? So Jonah definitely wants to be famous. He wants to be a famous stand-up comedian. Jonah's brother is already famous. He is a former Disney Channel star turned big-time actor. And Jonah's concern with becoming famous is that he doesn't want to be Zach's big brother. He wants to be Jonah, famous in his own right. For Lee, she doesn't want to be famous. She just wants to be able to live her life, go to work, go home, and be comfortable. Jonah manages to wheedle out of her what she would be famous for if she was famous. And Lee's answer is that she would take photos. Those are some nice answers, but I think the most interesting thing about question two is the questions that it inspired me when I wrote in my diary.
Something surprising happened when I had Lee and Jonah answer question 2 of the 36 questions to fall in love. Lee told Jonah off, a scathing takedown. She called him self-loathing and miserable. I didn't know she had the cojones. This was after Jonah riled her up and called her an ice queen. But anyway, that wasn't the truly surprising part. The surprising part was that after the insults and accusations from both of them about how the other hates themselves, they paused, laughed, and cheersed.
Clinked glasses. It's my journal. Don't judge me.
Are the insults a game to them? Are they both fundamentally similar? Like they're each points on a circle and they may be opposite, but they're both part of the same line? With characters, like I said, I discover through instinct so often. Some things feel right and some feel wrong, or some I don't spark to. But this, the animosity capped off with laughter, just came to me. It's somehow perfect and ideal and works for the characters. But now it lives here, and I need to use it, but I don't know what to do with it. Part of the problem might be I plopped these characters into what turned into Zach's kitchen without preamble.
Zach is Jonah's brother.
They exist outside space and time of the story. I'm kind of imagining they're having these conversations outside their narrative. Lee is Lee before and after the accident. Jonah is Jonah before the accident. But he carries all the potential trauma. And This is another interesting dilemma. I don't know how the accident changed Lee. Did it change her? Maybe it thwarted her change. Like before the accident, she'd geared up to make moves, quit her job, find herself. And then after the accident, change felt too scary because so much just happened, she went back to herself. I'm trying to keep this journal about process, and yet I just did some writing. But it's funny that finding a moment of unexpected laughter and reflecting on why and how brought up a different, more important question to answer.
This number 3, which I wrote a couple days ago. Before making a telephone call, did you ever rehearse what you're going to say and why? Both Lee and Jonah rehearse their telephone calls. Lee does it because she wants to be efficient, not waste time, and she doesn't like the phone. Jonah does it because extemporaneous speaking makes him nervous. But that's not really the point of this scene. The point of this scene is that Jonah goes and grabs Pop-Tarts from his brother's. They're in his brother's house because that's where the party's going to be that the time loop's in. In his brother's house, he's grabbed a box of strawberry iced Pop-Tarts out of his brother's cabinet and started eating them cold. And Lee finds that disgusting because Pop-Tarts should only be eaten warm. And even though that's not the point of the question, that feels important to me somehow. All right, y'all, I just finished question 4 on Monday, August 23rd. What would constitute a perfect day for you? So with this one, Jonah's answer is all about not being overshadowed by his brother and being able to do the things he loves. And Lee's answer is about being able to do the things she loves but can't do because of her circumstances, whether it's because she is a lawyer and so can't go surfing on a Wednesday and make friends with surfers, or because she's lactose intolerant and cannot eat that pastrami cheeseburger, which sounds delicious, and I don't eat it either because I don't eat cheese and beef together, but that is more of a personal choice. Regardless, the thing I most learned about Lee and Jonah today is that Lee is unhappy with her life because of choices that she made. I mean, lactose intolerance aside, but she can't change that beyond just taking a Lactaid and bearing down. And for Jonah, the situation that he's dealing with is mostly about the external perception of him. He wants to feel more important in his own life by people who he considers important. And I think it's really interesting that they're both dissatisfied, but in polar opposite ways, where Lee's more focused on things in her life that are very close to her, and Jonah's more focused on how people perceive him. It's food for thought and an interesting way to build a sort of opposites attract relationship, maybe? We'll see. Now I gotta get a snack and get ready to record How to Fall in Love the Hard Way. See you tomorrow. Hey, so it's Wednesday, August 25th, and I just did question 5, which is, when is the last time that you sang to yourself or to someone else? This one was actually really easy to answer for me. Usually I have to kind of try to find the answers as I'm writing, but Lee never sings. And Jonah sings to himself every morning and then did karaoke a week ago. He's a performer. Lee has a lot of things that she keeps inside. But while I was writing, I think I might have found the reason that Lee and Jonah need each other. And I wrote it on a Post-it. So I'm going to read this to you because I have terrible handwriting. Jonah needs someone who doesn't mind him being serious. And Lee needs someone who will entertain her crazy dreams without making her feel bad. And that's so key, and I can't believe that I've already discovered this on question 5, and I cannot wait to see what the other 31 questions are going to bring me. Hey, so it is Thursday, August 26th, and today I was supposed to be writing the answer to question 6, but then I caught a glimpse of question 7, and the entire scene just formed in front of my eyes. So I make the rules. I wrote the answer to question 7 today, and I'm gonna just, because it's a quick answer, I'm just gonna scooch my camera over to my computer and read the scene out loud to you. Excuse the messy desk. So here we go. Question 7. Do you have a secret hunch about how you will die? Lee and Jonah stare at the paper silently. And so I have this scene set up so that Lee and Jonah are in a kitchen together, sitting across a table from each other with a paper listing all these questions out between them, and they are stuck until they answer them all. So, all right, so Lee and Jonah stare at the paper silently. Their fear is palpable. Finally, Jonah. Let's skip this one. Lee flashes a glare at Jonah, but then she sees he's genuinely remorseful and somewhat terrified. They both know how Jonah thinks he might die. It wasn't a joke, and he wasn't making light of the thing that happened that night. Lee, yeah, a beat. Jonah, is that your answer, or are you agreeing with me? Lee, yeah, okay, let's skip it. I don't have a hunch. But they both know that Lee is lying. So, that is the answer for question 7. Obviously, with that night in all caps, I have something about the plot that I'm certain of, but not going to share that with you just yet. And tomorrow, I'll go back in time a little bit and jot down the answer for question 6. So I'm here on the ground with my cat buddy Kirk over here. Hey, Kirk. Do you like being on camera? He does not. He's trying not to look at it. It's all right. So today I did question 6 because yesterday I had a brainstorm and did question 7. Oh, look, there's another cat. That's Uhura. She doesn't like being on camera either. So the question 6, question 6 was, if you could live to the age of 90, would you rather spend the last 60 years of your life with the body of a 30-year-old or the mind of a 30-year-old? And so I was having some trouble with this question because while I knew that Jonah would say he wants the mind of a 30-year-old, he's a comedian, jokes are really important, and I can't decide whether he's not attractive or he just thinks he's not attractive, but either way, he doesn't put much stock in his looks. His mind is his thing. But for Lee, she is really intelligent. She's a lawyer. She also is a little bit shallow, which is okay. You can be shallow. I don't care how you look. I'm wearing makeup now. Lee was having trouble because she would want both. But for her, she loves doing active things, hiking, climbing, surfing, paddleboarding, running, etc. And for her, it's not about looks, the looks of the 30-year-old. It's about being able to be physically active. And while I was having trouble trying to figure out what her answer was, I eventually landed on she'd rather have the body. I decided to play a little game with myself because the most recent scripts that I've written are all audio drama scripts, really audio romantic comedy. It's for How to Fall in Love the Hard Way. So I'm getting very used to finding creative ways to explain what people are doing in dialogue without making it seem like I'm giving exposition. And I don't need to do that in a film. In fact, movies, there's so much stuff that actors can do just with their eyes or their bodies. A tilt of a head can mean so much. So as I was having trouble figuring out Lee's answer, I gave myself the challenge of trying to write this whole thing in a way that was more visual than not. Which, when the scene is 2 people sitting at a table, you can imagine how difficult that is. And I know I'm going to need more practice with that to just get back in the swing of writing films, things that you can actually see. So I'm going to keep that in mind as I continue on. And tomorrow, back in the saddle with question 8.
Kirk, do you have anything to say?
So today is Sunday, August 29th, and I've just done the answer to question 8. And notice that I was going to do question 8 yesterday, the 28th, but the 28th was the in-person premiere of INTERROBANG, my series about moments after sex when being emotionally naked is way more terrifying than being physically naked. It was at Dances with Films at the Chinese theaters. Absolutely fabulous. And it was a really busy day because afterwards had to go draft for fantasy football. So Derrick Henry was my number 1 pick. I had the 4th spot in the draft. If you want to talk about fantasy football, just leave me a comment, I guess. And right now I am doing what I do
when I'm trying to look for ideas or just kind of get out of the computer and find some new focus, and that's pacing my driveway. So I figured I would do this video diary here. So question 8 is name 3 things that you and your partner appear to have in common. And this is kind of like, it's a great question for the purposes of, trying to fall in love with someone, but for character building, especially the way that I'm doing it, where it's conversations between people, it's kind of boring because it's just people like, oh, what do we have in common? So I didn't go into this one with a game plan, but I found a couple things. First, that my decision to really try to get more visual storytelling into these vignettes in the previous question on Friday kind of bled into this one. There was some visual gags, some stuff with Jonah falling off a chair, looking at Lee trying to figure out a way out of this kitchen that they're trapped in until they answer all the questions. And also, I discovered something interesting about Jonah and Lee, because their big connection is that Lee's boyfriend, Devin, is Jonah's best friend. And so that's one of the things they have in common, that they both love Devin. And I also have noticed that Jonah notices that Lee is not super into their relationship, and he calls her out on it. So it's an interesting dynamic that's been brought in here. And the other thing is, I'm not sure I'm actually going to use that tidbit of information that I've basically made canon in this little vignette. I'm going to see how it works, but I appreciate discovering random things about characters through conflict and just through writing and seeing what comes out. Even if Jonah, in the real thing, in Kaleidoscope, in the script, doesn't notice that Lee and Devin aren't a great fit and that Lee is maybe bored with him, I like the idea that Jonah notices Lee and has really keen sense of observation, which is an interesting dynamic considering that his whole character is class clown type stand-up comedian guy who you maybe wouldn't necessarily think is all that observant in general, just because they have such a boisterous personality. But I like this aspect that Jonah notices Lee and can kind of read her. And Lee thinks that she's unreadable, and it's a mysterious woman. So that is it for question 8, and tomorrow, for real tomorrow, because I don't have any more premieres, though I am going to be going to some film festivals, I will have my answer for question 9 for you, and we'll find out what that question is tomorrow.
Hey, so it is Monday, August 29th, and I'm in my kitchen just about to make some chicken chorizo for dinner, but before I do that, gotta give you the answer to question 9, which is, tell me the one thing in your life that you're the most grateful for. So Jonah chooses fermentation because it gives you amazing things like pickles and beer and kombucha and kimchi and not polenta, but we're going to be doing some polenta. And Lee initially chooses Devin, her boyfriend, which Jonah calls out as a big sack of BS. And as we go through the scene, Jonah reveals that he's serious, that fermentation is his favorite thing. It's a marvel of science, and also it's something that's not going to let him down like his brain might, because he has some mental illness issues that we'll get into later, and it's not going to pity him like his family does. And when Lee hears that, she opens up and says that her actual thing that she's most grateful for are her eyes, because it allows her to take pictures and see the world. And the thing that I discovered about them is that when asked what they're most grateful for, they choose something that's not another person, because they don't necessarily feel, in Jonah's case, like he can trust people to be honest or just love him for him. And in Lee's case, she feels like obligated to choose a person, but in reality, when forced to choose, she chooses herself, and Jonah chooses a process of science that makes delicious things. I didn't intend for them to both be lonely. I didn't intend for them to connect on that, and yet that's where the scene ended up, which is pretty interesting and cool because despite their differences in a lot of ways, if you're lonely and you're ashamed of being lonely, in Lee's case, or in Jonah's case, if you're just resigned to it and don't feel like there's a way to fix it, finding someone else who has that same emotion can cure the loneliness. And that's a basis for love. So that's a pretty cool thing I learned about my characters today. And now I am going to find some tomatoes so I can get a nice sauce for this polenta and get that chicken chorizo in there, make it delicious. This isn't a cooking show, so I'm gonna go do that and we'll continue this journey tomorrow. So today is Tuesday, August 31st, and I'm hanging out in my bedroom after having gone through question 10, which is, what's something that you would change about the way that you were raised? And this question, I don't think the answers are too profound. Jonah wishes that he had parents who were as invested in his success as they were in his brother Zach's, who's this famous former Disney Channel star. And Lee wishes that her parents hadn't been so focused on her getting good grades and achieving, because then maybe she would have found her passion. The thing that was really striking me as I wrote this vignette, though, is how difficult it is to write a joke, which this isn't my first comedy, but for some reason, writing these scenes out of the context of a story is making it really difficult for me to make them funny. And even though I'm not going to be revising these scenes, at least as far as I can tell now, I definitely spent some time trying to come up with jokes and kind of just failing. Oh, Kirk is here. Hi. Yeah, I have a pink light. That's why he looked a little possessed right there. So, joke writing is going to be something that I'm going to be working on, obviously, throughout the making of this romantic comedy, but it's interesting that I'm finding that I need some sort of story to tether jokes to, maybe? I'm not quite sure, but I feel like my joke writing is going to be much strengthened by this whole process, the 36 questions and the writing of the script, because I have a character who's a stand-up comedian, and I'm struggling to have him tell jokes in real life, and I don't want to do some sort of cop-out where he's not always testing out new material, because it's a comedy. You're all supposed to laugh. We'll figure it out. And yeah, that's question 10. Tomorrow, on to question 11. All right, so there you have it. Those are the first 10 questions from the 36 Questions to Fall in Love series, and Lee and Jonah's answers. I'll be continuing to answer these questions and do these video diaries every day, but next week we're not going to be doing more of the same. What we're going to be doing is diving into another pre-writing thing that I love, something that helps me set the tone for the script and helps me get in the mood to write before, like, if I need a palate cleanser, and that is music. So I'm going to be diving into my Spotify playlist that I've created for Kaleidoscope and talk about that process a little bit. So if you like this video, please hit the like button. If you like what I'm doing here, taking you from idea to premiere, please hit subscribe. It would mean a lot to get more subscribers, to feel that support. It's so fantastic to have you here. And also in the comment section, why don't you tell me which of these 10 questions is your favorite? Would love to hear from you. And now, until next week, have a great one, and let's talk about music next time.